Not that I know.
There we go. So, what I did talk about before I push record is listening to your body and making the adjustments that you need to make with our movement. Sometimes it's a matter of just holding on to a chair or a table to help support you in skipping arm movements. Sometimes it's sitting down and not having your weight on your legs. And then sometimes it's just a matter of watching and getting what benefits you can out of watching the Tai Chi. So just listen to your body and make adjustments. We'll get started by just warming up our body, whether you're seated or standing, walking around the room. I walk forwards and backwards, even though I do not recommend walking backwards in real life because in real life you can't see behind you. But in virtual world life, I have a camera and I can see myself and I can see that nothing is behind me. So I'm a little safer. And but you may not feel comfortable even if you can see like this walking backwards. So just make those adjustments. But our point is just to get warmed up, get our bodies ready for movement. When our joints and muscles are warm, then they're less chance of injury. It just helps them be a little more flexible, malleable, movable whenever we're warmed up. I wake up in the morning sometimes and my body's just stiff and it kind of hurts. But once I get my blood flowing, once I've walked around the house a little bit, got up, got my coffee going, it's like the aches kind of go away. It's because my muscles are warmed up. So you may have experienced that too. They don't always go away. Sometimes I have a lingering something going on. But that's why we warm up, is just to get our muscles ready for what we're going to do. So let's go on into our warm-ups, thinking about how we're holding our bodies with our feet shoulder width, hip width apart, just wide enough to where we feel stable. Our weight is on both legs, and we have good posture. It's like a string that pulls up towards the ceiling and a string that pulls down towards the ground. And that tension right there is just holding those shoulders back, and we're standing up straight. So that's a good way to hold our bodies throughout the day, wherever we are out and about. Of course, we want to be breathing. Just check in with yourself every now and again and make sure you're not holding your breath. We tend to, when we get busy moving and doing things, we tend to hold our breath, but just be mindful of that. So let's start with our neck. Our hands come up, palms down, towards our chin and chest. Push away, and then follow those hands all the way down. Feel a little stretch in the back of your neck. Come back up. The other one for our neck starts out that same way. Come here, drop one hand to our hip, follow this hand as we look towards that shoulder. Feel a little bit of stretch. Come back to the front, switch hands, and to the other side. This is always where I feel the most tension in my body, is in my neck. So doing this movement throughout the day is good for that stiffness. So you don't have to wait for Tai Chi class, and you don't even have to have this hand movement. This hand movement is very Tai Chi, and so that's why they're like that for this class. But if you just wanted to stretch your neck, you can simply look towards that shoulder and back to front and to the other side. So you've probably done that exercise in a different program, but the hands make this Tai Chi. If you have problems with neck stiffness, another one you can do is lay that ear towards your shoulder and just let gravity lay your head, and you can feel the stretch of these muscles here in your neck, and then over to the other side. And when you do this stretch, don't get in a hurry, especially if you have problems getting dizzy, or if you get dizzy easily. Maybe you have a little vertigo, because if you were to do that movement real fast, you may make yourself have a dizzy spell. So just be mindful of going really slow as you transition from side to side. The next exercise is for our shoulders, and we roll those shoulders forward. And then we roll those shoulders back. Just tiny little circles. We go forward first, and then we go back second. And that kind of resets that posture. To me, that's why rolling forward feels so awkward, is because we're not supposed to walk around with our shoulders forward. We walk around with our shoulders back. So that always kind of resets my posture. For our other shoulder movement, we bring our hands up, palms up, and then push those palms down in front of us. Inhale up and then exhale down. One more. Now for our spine, let's take our ball. The hand that's on top is going to push down towards the ground. The other hand comes up and pushes up towards the ceiling. So we're pushing up and down at the same time, stretching those muscles in our back. Come back to our ball and switch. So now the other hand is pushing up towards the ceiling and the other hand's pushing down towards the ground. Back to the ball and switch. I like to inhale here when I gather my ball and then exhale as I separate and push. Some movements lend themselves to a breathing exercise more than others, and this is one of those where I just really do like to focus on breath along with the stretch. Now our next spinal exercise goes from side to side. The hand that's on top guides us in that direction, switching hands and coming back across. So yes, I want to breathe as I do this movement. If possible, inhale as you switch your hands and exhale as you go to the side. But I have found that the going to the side isn't quite long enough as I need for my exhale. So just do your thing with your breathing. As long as you're breathing here, don't worry so much about inhaling and exhaling at a certain point. So those are the three for our upper body. Now we're getting to our lower body exercises where it does rely on our weight-bearing joints, which makes them more difficult. So this is a good time to have a chair or a table nearby for balance. We're going to shift our weight to one leg, put that heel out forward and our hands are back, pause in the middle, and then toe back like a kickstand when our hands are up. Come back to middle. Now shift to the other side. Heel out, hands back. Pause and toe back, hands forward. So I'm shifting from side to side with this movement and giving that stable leg a break. Just breathe naturally as you go through this movement. Take your time in shifting the weight. That's one of the things about Tai Chi, because we do go so slow, it engages our muscle in a different way than if we do this movement in a fast pace. Let's do one more on each side. Slowly shift the weight, heel, and toe. Notice my body stays upright. I'm not leaning into the movement. Even if I'm moving my legs and shifting my weight, my body stays the same. Back to center. Now let's shift our weight from side to side. Shift. My hands are going in the direction of the weight shift. If I feel comfortable, lift that foot, tap it out, bring it back, change my hands, shift, tap, and back. If you don't feel comfortable tapping out, just shift the weight and leave that foot there. Shift the weight. Whichever you decide. There's no, either one of them are right. Because I know that right there, tapping that foot out, that's pretty brave to rely on that one leg to hold your weight. So if you don't feel comfortable, leave those feet on the floor. Just shift the weight. Now let's do our movement for our knees. I have my loose fist down by my hips. I'm going to shift, lift my foot, tap my toe out, and punch that opposite arm. Bring it back, shift, lift, tap and punch. Bring it back, shift, lift, tap and punch. Bring it back, shift, lift, tap and punch. Do one more on each side. Shift, lift, tap and punch. Bring it back, and last time, shift, lift, tap and punch. Our other knee exercise asks us to step forward. So we shift the weight, step, heel, toe, small step. Now let's shift to that front foot as we punch the opposite arm. Bring it back, feet side by side. Shift, step, heel, toe, shift and punch. Bring it back, side by side. Don't forget to keep that back leg flat on the floor. We don't want that heel lifting up. That pushes our body forward. And we want to stay stable and upright. These are the type movements that really help make your stabilizer muscles stronger. That's why your muscles get a little sore after you do Tai Chi, because you're engaging these muscles in a different way. So don't let that shy you away from doing it. Now, whenever you are getting a little bit tired with your legs, maybe you want to skip the arm movement. My chair is way over there. I'm not going to get it. So let's pretend here's my invisible chair. So here I'm holding my chair for balance. So I can step forward and shift the weight back and forth and hold on to that chair for balance. So sometimes it's too much to add in the punch and not have the chair for balance. But the main important thing is that you're shifting the weight, and that's going to engage the muscle and make it stronger. So don't worry about skipping the hand movements. Do those lower body ones, and then you'll get that benefit from it. Next is for our ankles, holding on to our hands. We don't have a hand movement here. We're going to shift the weight to one leg, and then heel, toe, rocking that foot, heel, toe. Bring that foot back, shift the weight, and heel, toe. Actually, I just did toe, heel. Did it backwards from what I said. Doesn't matter as long as you're rocking that foot and working on the mobility of that ankle joint. Bring that foot back. Now let's go big toe, little toe. So side to side. Another way that ankle joint moves, and the more mobile your ankle joint is, the easier you can recover from any type of almost fall. You know how sometimes your ankle gets twisted up and maybe an uneven floor or a place in the yard. You know, this can help you recover when those that ankle is more flexible and then the muscles are stronger. Sometimes we don't think about all those little muscles in our feet, of how important those muscles are. And so I wear pretty much flat shoes all day long, not just in Tai Chi class, but I wear very flat shoes. And because my shoe is not what supports my foot, my feet muscles have gotten stronger. And so that can help with balance too. Sometimes people wear too much of a shoe that does all the work for your feet. There are different reasons for having to wear those type shoes. Sometimes diabetics do to help protect their foot, because you can get a sore and that can be life altering. You can get a sore on your foot when you're a diabetic, and that can get infected. You can lose your foot, you can lose your leg. So I'm not trying to encourage you to wear flat shoes, non-supportive type shoes. I'm just talking strictly here about the muscles in your feet. And as we move through and do our Tai Chi movements, of course, if the muscles in your feet are strong, then that's just going to be that little bit extra that helps you with balance. So they're weight-bearing joints, whereas our knees and our hips, they're the ones that kind of get the brunt of our weight, but we also need our ankles and our feet to help out too. So all these movements are important. We don't want to skip any of them. They have reasons for doing those. All right, so those are our warm-ups. Do we have any questions about those? Do we feel good about those?
Feel good.
So if you never do what the Tai Chi series of movements, those movements we talk about, commencement, open and close, single whip, waving hands and clouds. If you never learn the Tai Chi series of movements, you can do the warm-ups that we just did and get the benefits from Tai Chi, because they engage and use all the principles of Tai Chi in our movement control and body structure, and then the internal that we experience by keeping our joints open, not locking joints. And when we're practicing by ourselves, we can experience a more mental quiet where we feel more calm when we do our Tai Chi. So you do those with our warm-ups and you get the benefits. You don't have to necessarily do the Tai Chi series of movements. But we're here to do the Tai Chi series of movements. So we're going to do those starting with commencement. Now, when I think about commencement, I think about a weight shift, a step forward, a weight shift, and bringing that other foot forward. It's a step forward, but there's that weight shift, and that's one of our principles. But you can also think of commencement as a breath movement. When I do commencement, it's a 2-breath movement for me. So first I'm going to go through the foot. Well, I just did. The footwork is shift right, step left, shift left, bring that right foot forward. That's the footwork. The handwork of commencement starts with our hands to our side. We bring our hands up, hands facing each other, and down, hands closer to our bodies, up, out, and back in. So when we bring our hands up, there's the soft bend. So anytime we go out, we're not out. It's a soft bend out and then back in. And the hand movement is what guides my breath. And like I said, it's a 2-breath movement. So I'm going to get closer and maybe y'all can hear me a little better. So I inhale as I come up. Then exhale. I get here and I inhale again. And exhale. So that is what works for me. Now, if you're doing Tai Chi on your own, you can go on your own pace. But following that breath where you completely inhale and then exhale here, and then inhale up and exhale out and here. And that gets you to open and close where that is a breath. Inhale, exhale, and it opens and closes your hands just simply by putting air in your lungs and then emptying your air with lungs. So that open and close is a breath. So these first 2 movements are a good one to really focus and think about breath. So let's go through that and think about our breath and commence. Inhale. I forgot to move my feet.
I'm just doing what you do.
I said focus on breath, didn't I? I didn't say move your feet. But I was so focused on my breath that I forgot to do something with my feet. Okay? Guess what? That's okay. Because I can sit down and just breathe and go through the hand motion of commencement as I inhale, exhale, inhale. I can just sit, move those hands over and over as I inhale and exhale. And that can be a breathing exercise. So don't worry if you forget to move your feet. Now listen, I'm going to try to move my feet this time. Thinking about my breath. So I was reading in the handbook, and the handbook talks about that those first 2 movements are where we're thinking about breath. I always thought about weight transference whenever I talked or thought about commencement, but it's the perfect one to think about breath with those hands. Now, I know in the beginning, we're just trying to figure out how do I do those foot movements and those hand movements at the same time? I forget. So backing off on thinking about breath, just thinking about our movement. Our hands come up, nothing's happening with those hands, with the legs. When our hands come down, we shift right. Step left, bring those hands in and up. We shift out or forward as our hands go out, and then bring that foot forward, open and close. So the movement of our hands and the weight shift go together. I think that's why I always think about weight transference, because it goes with my hands. But in that handbook, when it said to focus on breath for those first 2 movements, I said, okay, well, I'll challenge myself. So every now and again, we need to challenge ourselves and try something in a different way. And you saw what happened. I forgot to move my feet. So there you go. It's all in the name of trying something new and different and learning things in a new way. So those are our first movements in our Tai Chi exercise. Next is single whip. And so single whip is about the weight transfer, where we shift left, step right, push, turn, separate, following that left hand with our eyes and head. That's our single whip. So there's the weight transfer. We're here at open and close. We shift left, step right. And after we stepped right, we adjusted the weight to where we have weight on both legs again. Push our hands out, turn, separate, following that left hand. Let's put those together, the first three, from commencement to single whip. And commence. Open and close. Single whip. Shift, step, push, turn, separate, following that left hand. That's our single whip. Now I didn't what's the right word? I didn't go into that next movement to get you to the waving hands and clouds, because sometimes when you pull that foot back, holding your foot close together while all your weight's on this left leg, I mean, you see me wobbling, and I have good balance, but that's to me kind of dangerous. So I pull that transition. That's the word I was thinking of. The transition move from single whip to waving hands and clouds. So single whip, weight transference. Now this is what I'm telling you is what the handbook brought to my attention is in a different way of thinking about our movements. Our next movement is waving hands and clouds. And waving hands and clouds, I always think about weight transfer. Well, you probably do too, because what do we do the whole time? We step, we shift, we step, we shift, we step, we shift. I mean, there's 6 steps, but 3 step and a follow step of step and shift. So that's what we do is weight transfer. Well, our handbook says this movement helps you think about spatial awareness. Well, that's not a word that I use very often. You may not have ever heard me say spatial awareness, but I've talked about it in a different way. I'm going to step over here. Whenever I step out for that first time, I have to be aware of my space. If I step way out, then that's kind of hard to recover from. So I can feel that. I know in order to move again, I'm going to have to kind of kick off one of my feet to be able to put myself in a better place. Whereas if I do about a hip width or maybe a little further out space, then I can shift the weight and still move that other foot comfortably. So that is spatial awareness. That is knowing without looking down where my feet are. Now, I can look at myself in my camera, or I can look at myself in the mirror and see how far I'm stepping out. But it's even better if you feel that the amount that you stepped out is the proper distance to help keep you stable. And that's spatial awareness. So I've kind of talked about it in the size of your step, because that first step is a little wider than hip width or shoulder width. And then that second step is about hip width or shoulder width. So we've talked about the space of your step before, but not necessarily in terms of spatial awareness. Another thing about spatial awareness is when you come into a space, you do kind of a scan at the floor to see if there's any kind of trip hazards. If I think about this, if I'm going to a place where there's small children, because children come with little toys. And so if you go into that kind of a space, you check the floor if there's anything in the floor. Anytime you go into a space, just do a nice little floor scan to see what's there. Right now, you can kind of see it, but if I pull this chair out, I was looking forward and I can see where the legs of that chair, it sticks out further than the back of it. It's hard for you to see, but that's the kind of stuff that you want to take note of. So whenever I go to walk behind this chair, I have to step out just a little bit to make sure I don't fall over that leg that's sticking out. And so that's just something that we do or should do as people concerned about falls. As people who check our environment to set ourselves up to not fall. Spatial awareness. Something else I do with Tai Chi is if I'm going to wave hands in clouds to the right, I'm not going to start right here because I'm not going to be able to go very far. I'm going to run into a wall. And so if you're practicing Tai Chi or if you're doing another movement, check your space. Do you have the right amount of space to do what you want to do? You don't want to run into a wall. If you're on a porch, you don't want to fall off your porch. So being aware of our space and how we're needing to move through that space is part of spatial awareness too. So let's walk sideways, just like we do in waving hands in clouds, to experience spatial awareness in the amount of space we step. So we start with the weight shift to our left, step right, shift, follow step left, shift, step, shift, step, step, shift, step. So we're shifting side to side or from foot to foot, but our bodies remain upright. So I'm not leaning to the left when I shift to the left or right. I'm staying upright. I'm aware there's a wall there. I'm not stepping out too far. I'm not stepping in too close. When my feet are this close together, I feel a little wobbly. I don't feel real stable. When I step out too far, I don't feel like I can move very easily. I have to really push off that other foot. So shift and step and feel your natural space. So it's okay if it's a little closer, your feet are a little close together. The main point is that you feel stable as you move and do waving hands in clouds, stepping. Or I call it Tai Chi walking to the side. That's the experience of spatial awareness, that we're stepping in the amount of space where we still feel safe. Any questions about that, about spatial awareness?
I'm pretty good at that.
Okay, good deal. I know that sometimes in the past, I have seen pictures where I have did a step and a follow step. Hold on, how did I do it? Step, shift, follow step. And I didn't have the awareness that my heel was up. It was only after I saw a picture of myself and saw that heel up like that, even though my body's upright, that's still not a grounded movement. Having that heel on the ground is important in stability and grounding this movement. Now I feel it. I feel that my heel is up. But back then I was new and I was just trying to get through the motions without forgetting what I was doing. I wasn't thinking about that feeling of what it feels like to have that heel down, how it helps you feel more grounded. And so that comes with time and practice. So I encourage you to watch yourself on a video or watch yourself in a mirror or get someone to take pictures of you because you may be doing things you don't realize. I know that I've seen people do waving hands in clouds and they'll go like this. So if you see from the side, they lean and wave, lean. Well, anytime you're leaning, you're going towards falling. You know, if gravity took a hold of me, I would fall down. So waving hands in clouds requires you to have that upright posture. Well, they might not realize that they were leaning. And I'm probably exaggerating a little. Okay, maybe a lot. But anytime that you might not realize, you might be thinking about that, the circular motion of your hands, and might not realize that your body is leaning. But you can see it if you have a picture or you take a video. So that's something that I was surprised to learn when I saw some of the things I was doing. And I had to politely tell my mama not to post pictures because if my instructor saw me, she would say, no, 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 that's not right. So I have made an effort to get better at those things. So let's wave hands in clouds. We finished with our single whip. We'll just go back to single whip. We shifted left, stepped right, push, turn, separate, following that left hand. Shift left, bring that right foot back, right hand down for waving hands in cloud. Step right, switch hands, turn right, shift, step, switch, turn. When I step left, I wave left. When I step right, I wave right. Step, turn to the middle for open and close. All right, let's do that again. Single whip. Shift left, step right. Push out, turn, separate, following that left hand. Shift, bring that right foot back, right hand down, waving hands in clouds. Step right, switch, turn. Step left, turn left. Step, turn. Step, turn. Step, turn. Step, turn. To the middle for open and close. So we've taught different ways about doing waving hands in clouds where we use the 4 words of switch, step, turn, shift. We've talked about switch and step, turn and shift, switch and step, turn and shift, switch and step, turn and shift. And now I've introduced another way today of step, turn, step, turn, step, turn. So even though the switch and the shift happened, I didn't say the words. But in order for you to step, you have to take the weight off of it to be able to move it. In order to turn to the other direction, you have to switch your hands in order to turn. So it was kind of an understanding that you did those things, but I didn't use the word. So figure out what works for you and practice the different ways. Practice with the 4 words, breaking it down. Practice with the 2 words at the same time. And then, or the 4 words 2 at a time. And then practice with the 2 words. And then the other 2 are kind of silent. And before you know it, you'll find your way with the movement. You won't need the words because you'll have it down pat. Your body will do it without you even thinking about it. As you walk, as you step and shift, as you turn and switch. I highly recommend waving hands in clouds to help with your stabilizer muscles. All right, let's put it together. From the top of commencement and commence. Up, down. Shift. Bring those hands back, open and close. Single whip. Step, push, turn, separate. Waving hands in clouds. Step right, turn right. Whatever words you're using as you go through this movement, whichever ones help you. Open and close. Close it out. Now we do single whip and waving hands in clouds to the left. So after that open and close, we're ready to single whip. This time we shift right, step left, push, turn, separate, following that right hand. See my spatial awareness, I ran into the wall. So there's that single whip. The first time we shifted left, stepped right, push, turn, separate, following the left hand. And the second time we shift right, step left, push, turn, separate, following the right hand. So same movement, just exact opposite. Which puts us into waving hands in clouds. So here's the end of single whip. I shift right, bring that left foot and left hand down. Step left, step left, switch, turn. Step, switch and turn. Waving hands in clouds to the left. Open and close. Close it out. So we're going to practice that just several times in a row. One thing I want you to pay attention to is that very last turn. You know open and close is coming next. You know that's coming next. And so your tendency may be to just stop in the middle and get ready for open and close. But don't cheat yourself out of that whole movement. Make sure whenever you end that final turn, you go all the way. Now get ready for open and close. And so I always think of it like a magnet. As I come here, here's my magnet, and I'm pulling it to center for open and close. So go that full turn, then get ready for open and close. So sometimes we kind of forget and we break off that last part of the movement. but don't cheat yourself of it. Do the whole turn for the sake of your spine. All right, so let's do it from the beginning to the end. Even if you feel a little unsure, that's how you learn. That's how you know where you need to work more on, is by feeling that little, I don't know what's next, or, ooh, I don't think I did that right. All right, here we go from the top and commence. Open and close. Single whip. Waving hands and clouds. Step and switch. Turn. Shift. Open and close. Single whip. Waving hands and clouds. Open and close. Close it out. All right, how was that?
Good.
Did you like me not talking, just calling out the names?
Well, I enjoyed it. Good. Yeah, that was good.
Okay, very good. Well, let's just keep going through those several times before we cool down. As we have learned our movements and talked about more ways to focus on them, or the little, nuances of the movement, now that we know them, we can just really dig in and practice them. So here we go. Commence. Open and close. Single whip. Waving hands and clouds. Open and close. Single whip. Waving hands and clouds. Open and close. Close it out. So in the beginning, you're learning, you're just going, oh, I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do next with my body. That's typical learning step of Tai Chi. Once you learn it, you can start really focusing on the principles with the movement. So I may have gotten a little bit ahead or too far into it. Maybe not for Miss Arlene or Miss Susie, because y'all been doing it. But when I talked about commencement being about breath, really focusing on breath. And single whip being about weight transfer. So you can really think about weight transfer when you're going through that movement. And then waving hands in clouds being about spatial awareness. So once you know it, you can think about the different principles along with the movement. You can go through the whole Tai Chi series from commencement through, through your single whips, through your waving hands in clouds both ways, open and close. You can go through that whole thing and just think about breath. You can go through that whole thing and think about slow, smooth, continuous. That's my favorite series of words. You can go through that whole thing and just think about upright posture to make sure that you're really keeping upright posture, no tension in those shoulders. You can think about weight transfer all the way through. You can focus on one principle at the time. Your body knows the movements, or maybe you have a list of the movements in front of you so you don't have to think what's next. But once you learn them, you can dive into the principles, and that's when you really start getting the benefits. And you choose which one you want to focus on. Let's do it again. Whether you're focusing on what's next or whether you're focusing on weight transfer, whatever you choose. Here we go. And commence. Open and close. Single whip. Waving hands in clouds. Open and close. Single whip. Waving hands in clouds. Open and close. Close it out. So let's give ourselves a little fist massage. We tell our legs, thank you for working so hard for us. This breaks up lactic acid, like I said, gives our little muscles a massage. They work so hard as we shift our weight, and they carry us, and they get tired. So a good old massage tells them thank you. And then we always want to be aware of tension. And sometimes when we gather it and purposely have tension and then purposely release it all, we can release some that was already there that we might not have realized. Gather and release. Gather and release. One more. Gather. Release. Now breathe. Inhale as our hands come up. Exhale as we push down. One more. And then always to end class, we have our right fist that represents our strength, our left hand, our fingers together representing our friendship, our thumb in, that's our humility. So strength, friendship, and humility. In mutual respect, we say namaste.
Namaste.
So thank y'all so much. I hope y'all have a great week. As always, let me know if you have any questions or if I can do anything for you. I do want to let you know, here's my calendar. I thought I had my calendar in here. October the 18th. I won't have class that day because my boss has asked if I would go present at an aging advisory council meeting. And so, of course, y'all know if the boss tells you to do something, you say, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, if they're a boy. And then, but we'll still get full 16 weeks. I'll add it down to the end, but I'll remind you again. I just wanted to go ahead and let y'all know.
The 18th, no class.
October 18th, no class.
Okay.
All right. Well, like I said, let me know if you have any questions between now and then. I'll be around through email, and I think y'all have my phone number. But recordings will be on YouTube, past, and there's no future classes on YouTube. Only past ones. I can't figure that one out just yet. All right. Well, I love y'all, and y'all take care.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.